Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 174 of Real Blend, a podcast that has a twist ending this week. On this week's show,
one of
Black
us is
Widow.
Dead.
We've been dead the whole time. Black Widow drops at the box office, and I mean drops significantly. Old reviews. We're going to talk about it. I'm not Sean.
The drops. Come on.
It wasn't even an end. It wasn't really an Endgame joke. It was more just that the box office plunged.
It kind of was.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of. I guess it is. And our guest this week is very exciting. It's M. Night Shyamalan joining the show. We are. Oh my God, you guys are in for a treat. This one is fantastic. He is a perfect Real Blend guest. He fits in beautifully.
So much so,
you guys are gonna love that conversation.
He's gonna take Gabe's spot as fourth chair.
He literally invited us over to his house multiple times.
I have to say, and we're gonna toss this shortly, and after we get to our poll. But like, we started the show, in 2000. Was it 17? What year did we start it? End of 2017.
Yeah, January of 18.
Right, and like we started the show again as an award show. And we never expected to get anybody on the show guest-wise. M. Night is one of the biggest directors ever for our lifetimes. And the fact that he's on our show is an insane thing to say. I know we've had a lot of big directors on our show, but getting M. Night was a really special one for us. So I'm really excited we have him.
And also, not to detour too far off of that too, but when we started this show, someone suggested we should get interviews. And I believe all of us were like, man, I don't want to do interviews. We do interviews in our free time. Like that's our job. Can't this just be fun? And now our best interviews come from this
now it's
show.
like, what do you mean we don't have an interview? How the hell are we going to talk to each other?
I mean, for me personally, this is the kind of show I always dreamed of. And because I did a radio show when I at CBS a long time ago, and to talk to people in longer form, like the fact that our show has turned into this is exactly what I had hoped one day. So this is awesome.
We might have some fun ones coming up. So that's Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. The other voice is Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. And, of course, the wonderful Gabe Kovach, producer in the chair. I'm Sean O'Connell, managing editor of Cinema Blend. And let's get to some housekeeping because we've got a lot of episode to get to. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello. Hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Go to the description area where, Gabe, people were yelling at us because in the description area, there was not a form. The form for the Tarantino books.
I fixed it.
You figure that out?
Well, unless the link if the article form wasn't working, that is beyond me. But there was like an hour or so when it launched where I forgot to put that in the description, the link itself, but I fixed it. Gotcha. So it's there now.
Did we give those away yet?
I think they're pulling them today or tomorrow.
Ooh, exciting!
Yes. So by the time
the Tarantino books,
by the time people listen to this, I think it's over. By the time they listen to it,
okay.
I hope I win one.
You have one already. You can't win another one.
Not with that attitude.
All right, and then of course we're available wherever your podcast needs met. One of the things you could read about in the descriptions is how to sign up for Real Blend Premium. It is a way to get an ad-free experience with the show. You get 2 newsletters a month from me based on topics that I like to discuss. And then you get a bonus episode of Real Blend every Monday. So make sure you go to cinemablend.com/realblendpremium and check out whether you think that's something that would interest you.
This week was a notable episode. This was our behind-the-scenes look at the Quentin Tarantino Live.
Oh, that was cool.
Show.
That was really cool.
Yeah, we don't do those very often.
Aren't we?
But it was a good one.
Aren't we officially a year of premiums now, too?
Next week, next Monday, episode 52 drops, which is...
What I find strange is I have to pay $5 a month just to text Gabe. I don't know how that.
Yes.
Where did that come about?
No. What's his name in your phone?
Babe. Now,
Babe Kovach.
So we are all on a very a text thread that we text hundreds of times a day, and Jake accidentally wrote Babe the other day instead of Gabe. It was just an autocorrect or whatever it was. So
his keyboard knew what he was trying to say.
Right, but officially he is.
It was in fact correct.
Yeah, he is Babe in my phone, so I'm excited.
That's amazing. All right, weekly poll. Let's get to the weekly poll. Knowing that we were going to have M. Night Shyamalan on, this was not an if it happens, this had already happened. And not wanting to get into tell us your favorite Shyamalan movie, what we burrowed down into is performance. So, Jake, I'm going to give you this one.
Ooh.
I gave 3 choices. And in a way, I'm a little bit glad that I picked one because I would have felt stupid if I left it out.
Yeah.
I gave the people to choose from Toni Collette, from The Sixth Sense,
Right.
Bryce Dallas Howard from The Village, James McAvoy from Split, or other. So first off, tell me what you think the people picked, and then you can also tell me what you would pick.
I think, even though Toni Collette got an Oscar nomination, as did Haley Joel Osment for Sixth Sense, I hope people understand just how incredible James McAvoy's performance is. And I think Kevin would agree with me on this. I think he deserved an Oscar nomination for Split. I think there's a solid argument to say he deserved an Oscar for Split. And you guys, I don't think I'm hyperbolic when it comes to like throwing out Oscars and all that sort of stuff. So I believe Split, James McAvoy for Split. And I'm going to say people feel the same way.
76% of the people said Split.
That's it. That's what I'm talking
and
about.
I almost forgot him. Like, I was going to try to really get a Bruce Willis or a Sam Jackson, performance in there. But then at the last minute, I was like, oh my God, that's right. McAvoy was so amazing in Split.
Yeah.
It blows me away that M. Night gets really great performances out of people. Yeah. We're going to talk about Old, and Old for its premise and everything and its camera works and how impressive his camera work is. It's got great performances in it. He works really well with actors. And I think that gets overshadowed by his writing and some of his camera techniques. Kev, where would you have gone?
In all honesty, I rewatched The Village this weekend. See, there are a few of his films that I think are not well received in an unfortunate way. I think The Village and Lady in the Water are two excellent films of his. And I think Bryce Dallas Howard's performance in The Village and Lady in the Water are incredible. He, like you said, he has so many amazing actors. I forgot Joaquin Phoenix was even in The Village. I hadn't seen The Village in years. I remember I loved it in theaters. I revisited it a few years later, liked it, and borderline loved it. And then I rewatched it this weekend. And I love that film. It's an incredible film, and I get the criticisms behind it. I didn't see that ending coming, and I think Phoenix is amazing.
I love The Village.
There's a scene in that movie. I guess am I allowed to say anything about spoilers from The Village, Gabe, or is that too soon? 2000.
Oh, I think it's wide open.
You can spoil. I mean, again, if you're going to say a spoiler, just say, hey, I'm going to spoil it. And people can skip 5-10 seconds ahead.
I'm going to mention a Village spoiler. So there's a scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character gets stabbed by Adrian Brody. And the way that scene is directed in terms of the camera work and the expression on Joaquin's face, we don't know the knife is in him yet. And it's just incredible, like silence in that scene, and it's so deafening. I mean, M. Night, I think, deserves more credit. I think a lot of people are in a bubble where they think, oh, he's the twist guy, and then when he doesn't deliver a good twist, people get mad at the film. And I think that Lady in the Water was the movie that kind of threw that the other way around. Like, he was like, you want a twist? I'm not going to give you one, essentially. And I thought that, to me, I think he's one of the better filmmakers working today, and I think that there is some negativity that is spewed at him that is just not right. I think people are just brutal to him for some reason.
You just rewatched Village, so I have to ask you something, because I watched it with Brendan maybe a year ago, and I'm blanking now. When they lock Adrian Brody in that room, after he stabs Joaquin, what's buried under the floorboards? Is it the red costume?
He escapes under the floorboards. I actually don't remember where he gets the costume from.
Okay, then maybe that's what it is, because then I just found it kind of amusing that, like, the room they put him in was the one that had, like, the floorboard that came loose or a hole that he got out. There was something in the floorboards that I thought he got a hold of. The shot you're referring
to is when they eventually figure out that he escaped, they have a shot overhead of the floorboard open. I don't know or remember specifically. I may have gotten up to go to the bathroom. I don't remember now, but I don't know that he got the actual costume from down there. You're talking about the scene later on where he runs into Bryce Dallas Howard in the woods and they have that interaction and then he falls off the cliff. I don't. Well, forgive me if I'm mistaken this or not, but they kept the wardrobe in those boxes as well, right? Or those boxes had things from modern day in them as well, like cell phones and things.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know where they kept. Yeah. I don't know where he got that one from.
Man, in addition to that cast, because that cast also had Sigourney Weaver and William Hurt, like, M. Night gets amazing actors.
Also, I really think, I don't take it any further, but like, I think Signs is one of Mel Gibson's best performances. Mm-hmm. Like that moment on the couch where he basically confesses to Joaquin, like I don't think God is out there anymore. Like no one is. Like, that's incredible.
Do we all agree his masterpiece is Unbreakable?
No.
Where are we on his masterpiece?
No. I think it's Sixth Sense.
See, I think Sixth Sense is a phenomenal film. His second best movie. I think Unbreakable is his genuine masterpiece from a filmmaking standpoint.
Yeah.
I think I have to go Sixth Sense, and I hate to give this to something that's so early in the process, but it's just such a.
Gabe, where are you, real fast?
But listen, that's not why.
Oh my God. I
never seen any.
No, there was one. I haven't seen Glass. I don't think it's gonna be Glass, but I haven't caught up on Glass. Probably Sixth Sense. I really liked Unbreakable, but it didn't hit me. I've only seen it maybe 3 times.
Rewatch
and
it.
It's been a while. But Sixth Sense sounds right. Feels right.
Okay.
Well, the reason we're getting M. Night on the show is for his new film Old, which we will review later in the show. And so I don't want to make you guys wait any longer because this is a fantastic conversation that I think you're all going to enjoy. M. Night Shyamalan joining the Real Blend podcast.
Well, thank you very much for joining the Real Blend podcast. Obviously, I'm Kevin. That's Jake right there, and that's Sean O'Connell. And we are honored to have you on our show. This is a deep dive filmmaking podcast that we started a few years ago, so it's an honor to have you on. I'm going to start off with this because we just did this interview with Quentin Tarantino recently, and we got into a discussion about aspect ratios. And I was actually going through your filmography, and it's really interesting the choices you made as a director. Sixth Sense was 185, Unbreakable was 239, and Signs you went back to 185, Village you went back to 185, Glass was 239, and now you're doing 239 here. And I was actually interested in knowing, in terms of a storyteller, what the aspect ratio does for you and why certain films are 185 and why other films are 239, and what that means to you as a storyteller.
You know, what a fantastic question. Wow, this is I'm already so geeking out. This is a fantastic question.
You're in the right place. You're in the right place.
You're killing it.
Thank you.
You know, the composition is so critical because it's a window that we're looking through. The art form of cinema is a kind of an insinuative art form. What's on this side? What's on this side? What are you know, do you do the Woody Allen thing when people come in and out of frames? You know, I can show someone looking at someone and just off their reactions, imagining the person on the other side of frame. So the aspect ratio is critical. I find that the 185 is they say is the closest to what we see naturally, and so then 239 would be a slightly more kind of artistic frame, and then as you go down to kind of more TV formats and things like that, it's more boxy and things like that. We just watched Silence of the Lambs in our theater again for the 1 millionth time, and seeing in that unusual boxy format was fascinating. It had a kind of and Jonathan, before he passed away, we talked about it, and he had to kind of use that boxiness to create a claustrophobia, he was saying. And for me, the kind of the artistry of the frame, that unbreakable composition, and you see it here in Old, especially on a beach, I kind of do it based on the subject matter and the place that we're in and the cinematographer's affinities. So we have a conversation to see if they're comfortable with it, if they embrace it, and even when I'm drawing it, because I draw everything out, so I draw every single frame in the film is drawn. So does it lean itself to that? And you can imagine on a beach, if I show if I do like a Kurosawa kind of frame with a profile of someone sitting here in profile and someone looking straight at us, so you're getting kind of different aspects of the emotion. They're not looking at each other. It's very graphic, that more horizontal frame, which I prefer. I prefer that horizontal frame, and it's certainly in this day and age, just the nomenclature of how we receive stories. It says to you, it's cinema. So the more horizontal it gets, the more it becomes cinema in our minds, and it's unusual. They even put warning, this goes to that whole thing of like, you get like flat screen TVs, or you go to my parents' house and you look at their TV, which they know I want to pick up and smash on the ground every time I go in there. I just turn it off because their power goes out no matter what I set it to. It goes back to that preset garbage with the all of that stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, don't.
Do they ever watch your movies?
No way, dude. I won't let anybody watch any while I'm there. You can't watch anything on that thing. I mean, on that, watch Wheel of Fortune all you want on that, but you don't put anything else on there but Wheel of Fortune, okay? I forbid you to watch anything on this. But to imagine, when you, by the way, so like Chris and I and so many others, we fought for that filmmaker mode on those TVs, right? But it's so buried in the menus. You have to fight your way in there and find it. And then they have a warning there that says, hey, don't turn this on because it'll make it darker. Like they're warning you. So what non-filmmaker is going to be like, they're going to never put that on? And so this thing also, you know, they would warn you about letterbox and putting the black on. But I definitely prefer it for this movie because it's a horizontal plane, the beach, that to do this ratio was our best bet. It was an easy decision, and especially after we decided to shoot on film as well.
35, man. It was amazing.
Would you like to be the next member of Real Blend? Because you fit right into this podcast very well. You just slide right in.
That's right. Look, right there. There's a space right there. It could be a 4. Like
You're in.
4 of us.
You're in. You're in.
Let's do it.
You make some really great, unique, creative camera choices with this film. And the only other thing you've done that sort of reminded me that it's in the vein of is Servant, which anyone that's listening, if you haven't seen Servant, you got to watch it because it's brilliant. But I'm sort of curious, do you use Servant to like try out different tricks, camera tricks, different angles, and that you then might one day use on the big screen?
Not the angles, but the premise. So, for example, what Servant really taught me was thinking of a story as a sequence, one sequence only. So because the reason I thought like that is because like if you see the ones that I directed, so like the pilot or 109, which I directed, these and by the way, yesterday Marshall got nominated for cinematography for the episode we did on Servant, which is great. But like that episode that he got nominated for cinematography, it's a sequence of a half an hour. So I started thinking in terms of cinematic language of a half an hour. So don't do the close-up here. When are you going to do, how do you evolve into the kind of language? And when I started thinking about it as a sequence, I went, could I do a 2-hour sequence? Is it possible to think of the whole movie as a movement of a language? And that has affected me. And I think when you see the tumbling nature of Old, that's come from my experimentations in Servant of saying this is the nomenclature we're using for this episode. Like if you guys come to the offices, and you guys are always welcome to come to see Servant offices, you see on my wall the last episode I directed. I keep the boards up, and you can just watch the whole episode right there. I don't shoot coverage. That's it. That's what we shoot, and there's a rhythm to it. And so like when you're watching Old, hopefully you felt a certain cadence to it of movement of, like, for example, how do you use the camera and detach it from the things that are happening so it's independent of the events that are happening? And so like time, that it is ignorant of that it's not stopping on you. It just keeps moving and moving, independent, and you'll catch some things. They will be on camera, some will be off camera. That as a language, for example. And then we had many of those, like this is the language of the piece.
Knight, one of the things I don't think you get enough credit for is your casting. You find amazing actors who perfectly fit the roles you need them for. I went back and rewatched The Village recently with my young son and was blown away by how great Bryce Dallas Howard is at such a young age. You can write this story out and you can storyboard it if you want, but if you don't find the right actors to play, especially the kids, because their leap is the most significant to us believing the story. So I cannot say how much I was blown away by Thomason and by Eliza and Alex. How early in the process do you find them? Were they crucial casts for you, and what were you looking for when you were going after those roles?
Yeah, well, you nailed it. This is a jigsaw puzzle, as most of the films are, but this one more so than anything, right? It has to be a jigsaw puzzle. How do you cast? What age do you cast first? Who are you casting first? They are a family. They have to look like each other. Who goes first, right? And the decision was those three first. That was the decision. Find those three. Who plays Trent from 15 to 30? Who plays Maddox from 15 to 30? And who plays those three? So when we ended up finding Eliza and Thomason and Alex, I went, all right, now cast the rest of the movie off of that. And so those were the three. And super lucky for me that the advantage I have two advantages. One is people audition for me. That is, it feels like such a simple thing, right? But this is how it works in Hollywood. You're an actor, you audition your whole life, you audition, you get great roles, you audition and find your breakthrough roles, then you stop auditioning. And now you're offered movies. And no one, you and them don't know whether this is the right fit. So it suddenly tips into the blind, you go into this blind process, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, you know? And then the actors start to do things that feel safer. And then the filmmakers are maybe making less organic choices and more kind of cerebral choices about casting for you know, are they big stars, all of that stuff. And I try to urge the actors to audition for me. And I say, please risk this moment of possible rejection to see if you, me, and that character are right for each other in this moment. And these are all the actors, every single one of them would never do the things that got them there. And I always tell that to them. The things you risked to do to get to where you were and get that amazing part, you now wouldn't do those things. So you're never going to find, you know, it's the exact right actor at that exact right time. You know what's so scary about, dude, is that there's only one that feels right. And so it's like Thomason read and 1,000 young women read, but it was Thomason. And I literally get this like pang in my thing. If we can't get her, I don't even want to make the movie. It's like, you know, get her. Yeah, you know, and I feel that way each and every time. Like Eliza, when she auditioned, I was like, man, this it has to be her, you know, that kind of thing. And so it's this beautiful magic that happens. And then you can imagine in this movie, trying to find a little child, like a boy that looks like Alex Wolff, you know, and that has the kind of right energy, the quirky energy, this kind of, you know, erudite precociousness. There's one kid in the world that looks like him and can do that. This is how like finite it is. It feels very magical to me when you know Haley walks through the door, or Abigail Breslin walks through the door, or Bryce Dallas Howard. To me, it's like a neon sign. Like, you know, like they have this big sign saying, it's me, and there's only one of me. And like, I get very like, please tell me we're going to cast this person. Don't tell me, you know, get them right. I get very panicky, you know, about it. And I've been better about trying to stay calm during. Luckily, everyone we offered it to said yes. And amazingly, they were all very courageous in an equal way about the pandemic, because this definitely could have been one where they were like, I'm out.
Yeah. You know, one thing I find really super interesting is this idea that making this film kind of helped you work through anxieties of like losing parents or losing children to adulthood. And so I'm actually interested in exploring that a little more in the sense of, did it actually help you? And how did it help you? After making the film and after you finished the film, did it actually work to help your anxieties? And for your other films, like even like Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, were those films that helped you work through other anxieties in your life?
I just read a book about the psychology of kind of healing and, you know, how we do unhealthy habits. So, for example, they found that if you complain a lot and you complain to your friends a lot, say you have a close friend and you're complaining and, oh my God, my boss is blah, 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 whatever it is. Oh, my girlfriend, blah, 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 you know, that kind of, and that person's like, yeah, yeah. And they let you keep complaining. You're not getting better. You're actually getting the neural pathways are deepening. And so ideally you want somebody that gives you perspective. And so that person goes, hey, you know, but she, you know, the girlfriend is going through a tough time because of her father, whatever it is, gives you perspective on the whole thing. That's the only thing that help you. But when you write it down, they found that journaling actually does help you. When you say, today I was on a podcast and I said some stupid things that I really feel embarrassed about, right? And I write it down, it loses its power over me because I create that little bit of space, like they say about meditation, you create that little bit of space to observe yourself and what happened to you. And you actually heal. It gives you perspective like your friend does, the right friend. It gives you a little perspective. And these movies are an elaborate version of that for me. So they, you know, talking about my fears, about my parents or my kids, and I get to watch it through these characters and detach just a little bit in a healthy way and see, hey, this is natural. This is what you three are going to go through, and she's going to go through, and he's going to go through, and we're all part of this together. And not that it isn't any less painful or scary, but you find courage and you find some aplomb or grace to handle it.
Wow, that's beautiful. Knight, you and I spoke the other day, and I asked you about the distance between coming up with the mystery and coming up with the resolution or with the answer. And you said a lot of times you'll start the process not knowing what the ending is going to be, and it's kind of fun for you to discover. I'm sort of curious, though, what is the furthest you've gotten in the story without having the answer. Have you ever reached a point of panic where you're writing and then go like, shit, I don't really know where this is going to go?
Well, I mean, it's always some iteration of that. I'd say Split probably was the one that I didn't, I was like, maybe I shouldn't put anything about the end. Maybe this is just a standalone and I don't tell them anything about the Unbreakable part. And then the third movie will come out and we'll say, you remember those two movies there? So for a long time, when I wrote that movie, I didn't put the end scene on. I handed it to studio without that end scene on. We shot it without that end scene on. We preview it without that end scene on. All of that stuff. And then the best part was I had a very subtle version of that scene at the end of Split. And then I said, let's just go for it. Let me call Bruce, say, hey, dude, would you come to Philly for like 3 hours and shoot this thing for me? And he was like, why, what? And I was like, well, I did this movie and it's kind of in the Unbreakable world. I don't know if we'll ever shoot the what. You want to just come for 3 hours, bro? And he was like, yeah, I'll come. And then we went to a diner. We didn't tell anybody. The crew didn't even know what we were shooting. And he walks in and they're like, what? And only the actors that were saying the lines and him, and he sat down, we shot the thing, he left, and the crew members are like, does this mean? And I was like, don't even talk about it. Let's just move on with life. By the way, the greatest thing happened was, imagine this, because I pay for my movies, right? It's such a weird situation. Just imagine this. I go to the Universal Studios, chairman, everyone, marketing team, everyone's in the theater. We go down the lights, and we play them Split. They don't know the ending that they're watching. They didn't even know I shot it because I didn't even send them the dailies of that. Then the lights go down. They watch the whole movie of Split. Then this scene comes on and they're like, they're completely flummoxed, right? And then the lights go on and they look at me and they're like, what are you saying? That's a Disney movie. And I go, it's all good. We have the permission to do it. And here you go. Can you imagine you're the chairman of a studio and the guy shows you that it's a sequel to a movie from another studio?
Right.
It was pretty cool.
That's such a Hollywood thing that like that's what they took from that twist. Like shit, we no longer have the rights to this.
They were like, what are we doing with this? You're referencing a Disney character.
Knight, the movie seems to present two life lessons as we get through it. And again, I'm trying to stay away from spoilers, but everybody knows it's about time essentially. And the two that my wife and I sort of argued about after the screening is the message kind of like, hey, slow down, appreciate each moment because time is moving really quickly? Or is the message a little bit, hey, time is moving really fast, so you better accomplish everything you need to accomplish? I'm curious where you are at in your stage right now.
Definitely the first of those. I think it's, when we try to hurry up to accomplish something, we're trying to beat time. We think of it as a race. Accumulate all these points in the video game before the time runs out. And that's a fool's errand. It just is. You end up, realizing, because I had success really early, really young, I get to tell my kids, hey, because they look at it going, they're now 20, 21, 24, those kind of thing. And I was saying, the illusion of winning the game went away quickly for me. And so now I can say, honestly, like, for example, no joke, just for real, just the four of us talking, this is a big deal that we get to talk about cinema and be here. Forget it's to promote a movie or any of that stuff. Yeah. This should be, I need to remember this, that the four of us had this conversation. I'm super lucky to meet you guys and have this conversation about this. That's it. There's no end game to this. It should be, yes, we're not here for old and all that stuff, but this is the kind of thing I'm trying to remember, like, be here right this second and enjoy it. I'm trying to talk to my kids about that as they're beginning that journey into society's race about accumulation of things.
A great lesson.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm so happy this film is coming out in theaters, obviously, and you shot it on 35 millimeter. And it was crazy talking to Vicky the other day because one of my favorite theatrical experiences of all time was seeing Phantom Thread on 70 millimeter at the ArcLight, and PTA had this like awesome curated soundtrack that played before the movie started, and just like theatrical experiences like that are so special to me. And a lot of your films have been so special to me in terms of the theatrical viewing, seeing them with strangers in a communal experience. experience, having that audience reaction. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite theatrical experiences you had growing up? Were there certain films that you remember specifically being in the theater, watching it with a friend? Like, what comes to mind as your favorite theatrical experiences?
Oh man, I got too many. This podcast would go on for like a year and a half.
That's cool with us. That's cool.
I'll pick one. I always talk about the Raiders of the Lost Ark experience, so we won't talk about that. But I did tell a British magazine this one. So we went to see this movie, which I didn't know quite what it was about, but everybody wanted to go see. It was called Fatal Attraction. So we went to the Ardmore Theater, and it was packed, and it was packed beyond fire code. Like, people were in the aisles. Back then, I guess they just let them. They kept selling tickets and let them sit in the aisles. It was packed, and a bunch of the kids from my high school went, and there was a girl that I was interested in who was there, and she didn't think of me. First of all, I was like 2 feet tall. She just didn't, I was like this little Indian kid. She just wasn't paying attention to me at all. But everyone in the school knew I wanted to make movies. Like, that was a ubiquitous knowledge of that the only Indian kid in school, and he loves movies. And the movie came on, everyone screaming and all this stuff, and Glenn Close and this and that. And then when it finished and the buzz in the theater, lights came on, and she leaned down across the row and looked over at me and goes, "You need to make movies like that." And that was it. So I guess that's when I became a thriller maker right there.
That's incredible.
Wait, do you know where she is?
I don't know where she lives now.
That person told you to make the films that you're going to make today. That's unbelievable.
It's like primal stuff. Maybe it's always about getting the girl. I don't know, guys. You guys tell me.
That's awesome.
I'm going to squeeze in one more because we have just a couple of minutes left. A lot of times, sometimes when people come over to my home here in Chicago, they'll ask me one question, which is, do you know M. Night Shyamalan? And the reason they ask me that is because I have a framed picture of you and me with a signed Science poster right there. My dog Daenerys, so you can hear barking, is a big fan. I'm sort of curious, what is the coolest piece of movie memorabilia or the coolest photo you have with someone in your home that people always talk to you about?
Oh man, I have two answers to that. One is, I try to, meet some people that I admire. So sometimes I'll just call them up and I'll say, "Hey, can I come and have lunch with you?" or that kind of thing. And so I have some photos in my house with my heroes. Like, I went to Detroit and saw Elmore Leonard. I called him up and I just said, could I come? Hi, I'm Knight. Could I come? And he's like, "Oh, I like your movies." And yeah, come on over. So I have this picture of me and Elmore Leonard. I just flew to his house and we spent all day together.
Did you drink rum punch?
Say it again?
Did you drink rum punch with him?
No, but it's funny you should say that because he was sober and he's like, I said, "Hey, do you want to have a glass of wine?" I didn't know that he was sober. And he was like, "Hell, let's drink together." He's like, "I haven't had a drink in 16 years. I was like, "Bro, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this." And he's like, I'm 80 years old. What does it matter? And I was like, no, we're not doing this. But that's there. But my second answer is I have all the original Hitchcock posters in my house. So if you guys comment, you see all the first edition Hitchcock posters as you go to the theater. So that's I think the thing that I cherish the most.
Amazing. Rope might be my ultimate Hitchcock film. I don't know if anybody else agrees, but Rope is I think might be his masterpiece. Or Vertigo. I don't know. They're so good.
Yeah, I just saw that. It was amazing. I just saw it again. It was amazing.
Knight, we cannot thank you enough for going extra time on your day. We know you've been talking to everybody all day, but we have been dying to get you on the show, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again soon. Congratulations with the movie and continued success. This was a blast. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, brother. Thank you so much. This wasn't even work. Take care, guys.
We want to thank Universal Pictures for going out of their way to giving us time with M. Night Shyamalan, who also stayed late on his press day in order to come onto the show and give us some extra time. So thank you very much to everybody involved. And we'll discuss Old a little bit later in the show. So let's get to talking points. And the experiment continues with movies that are opening in theaters to test the waters to see how comfortable people are in going back. And Black Widow, which got off to a strong start in its first weekend, dropped a very significant 67.8% at the box office. And, now we can start debating about what that necessarily means. NATO, the National Association for Theater Owners, immediately came out and condemned the lack of a theatrical window, an exclusive theatrical window, saying that Black Widow being available for Disney Plus chipped away at people going back out to the theaters in the second week in order to support it and support. And this is a Marvel movie. This should be the type of film that draws people out to theaters. But the fact that it's available for $30 on Disney Plus in that Premier Access window seems to have hurt it. Now, I'm going to push back on that slightly because the week prior, NATO was trumpeting, hey, it did better in theaters than it did on Disney Plus in an 80 million to 60 million kind of split. And so, clearly people want to come back out to theaters. And then what's interesting, too, is that in this most recent weekend, yes, Black Widow dropped a lot, but Space Jam did very well, despite the fact that it was available on HBO Max. So I'm not quite sure that this drop for Black Widow says to me that it's the theatrical window versus this just isn't a Marvel movie that was going to draw out significant numbers of people.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. Jake, where are you?
No, I would agree with that. I think it was a little too early for NATO to make that comment just yet. I think I'm far more curious about where we go in terms of week 3 and 4. Like, okay, yeah, it had a massive week 2 drop off, but does it sort of even out in weeks 3 and 4? I do think it's curious, and we touched on this last week, that Disney did not release a week 2 Disney Plus number.
Right.
And I think if it had been good, like more people were still buying it, I think they would have put that number out there, if anything, to negate that big week 2 drop. Yeah, look, Space Jam came out, and also, lest we not forget, we are still in a pandemic. Like, things are not operating as normal. And yes, it's nice to see an $80 million opening, and it's nice but like to say, like, hey, 3 years ago, it's different than it is. Well, yeah, of course it is. We're still not under the same circumstances. So I think it's a little unfair. We're not quite at a place where we can start in the same way that if anyone tried to, even though I'm not a Fast and Furious fan, if anyone tried to knock those numbers, I'd say, well, of course they're not going to be as big as like a Fast 7 or Fast 8. It's not the same circumstances. It's maybe not exactly apples and oranges, but I don't know. It's different. I don't know, Kevin. What do you think?
I mean, at the end of the day, you guys know that I'm in full support of a theatrical window exclusively.
Sure.
And I think last week on the show we had a discussion about what that window should be, right? And originally it was 90 days. Gabe made a point about being 45. I said as long as there's exclusivity. And I think I threw out like a week or two. In my personal opinion, I think it should be 45 or more, like Gabe said. But because of the times that we're in, I also understand that things are changing rapidly and changing all the time. I don't really have a problem with NATO's comment. I think that type of comment needs to be said. And I will say that, like, at the end of the day, yes, we are in a pandemic, and so not everybody is feeling safe to go to a movie theater yet. But at the end of the day, it's your choice, and that's how it has been in terms of like theatrical windows forever. If a movie comes out in theaters and you don't want to go see it in theaters, you wait the 90-day window and then you watch it at home. Even in the middle of a pandemic, I don't think that's a big ask to ask people. Like, can we give the theaters the exclusivity for whatever time frame they can? And I threw out, like I told you, 1 or 2 weeks, just because I feel like we have to kind of somehow come to a compromise.
Is Universal still 17
Universal,
days?
they made that deal with AMC where 17 days, so theoretically Old would be out on. But here's the question: how long has Fast 9 been out in theaters?
For whatever reason, Fast 9 was not being held to that 17-day window. I don't know why, but Universal,
really interesting
for
point.
some reason, didn't adhere to that 17-day window with F9. They absolutely should have. If they're doing it for one of their titles, they should do it for all of their titles.
How did that happen? Because F9 drops June 25th. The deal that we all saw made during the pandemic with AMC, and correct me if I'm wrong, was 17 days for an exclusive window in theaters. So theoretically, right now, F9 should be available in your home, according to that deal.
But it's not,
is that
right?
deal not 17 days? The 17 day is not just a minimum. It sounds like 17 days is just a minimum, which is what AMC
So they're
would
going to
want.
pick and choose? They're going to...
Absolutely.
Well, because the theaters aren't going to complain.
Theaters aren't going to complain, and if they can get $15 a person, they're going to take that over your entire household getting it in one go.
But I bet Old is going to be available in 17 days because that feels like the kind of movie that people would say, I'm going to wait to see it.
And I think when it comes down to the NATO response, I mean, I said this last week, I think Black Widow's opening would have been much bigger than it was in terms of 80 in theaters. Now, much bigger. I've seen numbers ranging between 110 to 120 to 130. It did 80 in theaters and 60 on Disney Plus. And we discussed this last week that Disney makes more money, right, in terms of profit when they release it on Disney Plus. That's also a factor as well. I do believe that the drop, it's not a black and white answer. It's not just like, hey, it's on Disney Plus. It's the pandemic. It's, is the movie's not an Avengers level film in terms of like the want to see it. I mean, Black Widow was a big movie, don't get me wrong, but did it have the anticipation of an Avengers movie? It did not.
I think even with the theatrical exclusive for several weeks, I think the second week drop on Black Widow, say if it was just in theaters, would have been about 55 or 60%.
I think that's fair.
And totally understandable because that movie, it's a film that was heavily delayed. I agree with you. I would love to see this conversation for a different movie. I would love to see it for a Dune. I would love to see it for a Top Gun. I would love to see it for, and again, I don't know if I'm sure Top Gun's exclusively theaters, but I'm just throwing out big movies that I would be very curious to see what their drop would be week to week.
I just am not sure what movies are going to have legs that
Fast
much
and
anymore,
Furious had pretty good legs for its first few weeks. I mean, and again, it is dying off now. Quiet Place had good legs. Place. I don't know what the drop. What was the drop?
Quiet Place had the smallest drop in the top 10, despite the fact that it became available on PVOD.
Right, and that movie came out, I guess, a month on PVOD later than the theater. So, in all honesty, Paramount doing a month. Listen, I missed the 90-day thing because that was it just felt safer that way in terms of like I liked that theaters had that much of a gap between their at-home release. I mean, Gabe, I don't know if you agree. 30 days sounds reasonable.
That's fair to me.
I think
for a window,
90 is never coming
Quiet
back.
Place did.
No.
So
I want to add. I think that trying to draw a conclusion from this is really hard in general. I think we're in such a new situation that even people whose jobs are to just analyze these things and make calls are making calls that they're not 100% certain about. I want to give one comparable and kind of make a point. Spider-Man Far From Home had a 51% drop off in its week 2.
Okay.
And that was in 2019.
And that's usually
that was
average. 50% is usually
about
an
50%.
Average,
If you can keep a 50%, that's good.
Right.
Like once you get into the 60s, that's when it's bad. So taking that, let's just use that as a single example. Taking that extra 15 or so percent, I don't think it's too crazy to think that extra 15% that didn't go to the box office the next week are the 15% that saw it at home. Or they're at least the 15% that if they weren't going to go the first week and they don't have to go the second week, they're just going to end up watching it at home at some point anyway.
Yeah, probably.
I think giving people that option is...
Yeah.
It's never going to just be... I don't think they can coexist.
But Sean's right. Black Widow's a tough one to look at because it's not Avengers. It's a very different
I think
film.
there are more variables than that even to try to decide.
I honestly want to be able to see what if Shang-Chi and the Eternals have a similar.
But do you think Shang-Chi and Eternals?
But I also don't think they're going to open as
exactly.
big.
I don't think Shang-Chi and Eternals are going to do more. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. I just don't know that if those characters and those properties are well known enough as Black Widow.
They're gonna play like origin story.
Right.
Before the pandemic even occurred, we were already anticipating, hey, now that Endgame's over, what is the next start of the phase going to be when they have all these things that people aren't, it's not a sequel that people are going to see. Does Marvel have the the sort of draw that they can just put their logo?
Honestly, I'll be curious for Old, which doesn't have a franchise behind it, but it has a director.
Yeah.
I think Old overperforms.
I think Old will do what?
Yeah?
This is a guess, completely uneducated. I have not looked at any numbers. I would say Old would do a solid 25 to 30.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Yeah, I was gonna say 25.
And then I would,
which is they've got to be happy with, right? Like they've got to be thrilled with it.
Then you go to 12 on next weekend, and I could just see that drop, and then to Sean's point, perfect time for the third week or fourth week to go to the on demand. But I'll go back to this one point I want to make, and I think this is important to note. Like pandemic aside, we have had theatrical windows before the pandemic, and they've been around for a long time. People waited 90 plus days to watch a film if they didn't want to go to a theater. So at the end of the day, just give the theaters their exclusive access. That's all we're saying. Give them a certain amount of time, whether it be 30 to 45 days, and then bring everything to on demand. It's really, I don't think that's a bad compromise. If you're dropping the theatrical window in half, the theaters are already compromising in that sense.
So wait, but okay, so let's ask a question. Who's preventing that from happening? It's the studios?
But this is an interesting conversation, right? Because I sent you guys a poster this week for Dune. And the bottom of the Dune poster, it was in theaters and on HBO Max. And I think we've had conversations where we thought maybe Denis will talk to Warner Brothers, they'll pull it from HBO Max, they'll maybe give it a 2 or 3 week run, whatever it would be. And they clearly are going full on with an HBO Max and theatrical run.
So you gotta ask why.
I don't know.
You have to ask why.
So you know, might be a good indicator that I think is Suicide Squad. Squad will be an interesting one because
that's interesting.
Now it's rated R. So I was thinking about this today when I was driving.
But it comes with your subscription, right? I mean, that's a big difference.
Oh yeah,
it's free.
And the big difference
quote, unquote.
in Space Jam is Space Jam doing 32 million that good of a number?
I mean, I saw projections at 20, so it's at least significantly higher than projections were.
And the reviews were really
Especially
bad.
Yours.
And theoretically, it's available for people who have HBO Max.
Yeah.
They could.
But you guys made a great point the other last week, which I thought was it kind of solidified this thought process a little more for me. People who want to see Dune and people who are fans of Denis films are going to go to the theater, and and that audience is already locked in. So you already have that audience. So the movie being on HBO Max, I don't necessarily think it's going to hurt Dune as much as much as I think it will, because there are so many people who are so locked into Denis' work that they're going to want to see it on the big screen because they're pushing the IMAX thing. Yeah. But I still wonder, and this goes back to Sean's question just now, whose decision is this? Because after Quiet Place and after F9 opened, we clearly saw that box office was doing fine, right? And so the question we had after those box office openings was, will Black Widow then remove its Disney Plus premiere access for the first how many weeks it would be? And they didn't. And now HBO Max is not doing that for Dune. And we know, so the HBO Max deal, to clarify, goes through the end of the year, and then next year it goes back to theatrical exclusive, correct?
So they say they can do whatever they want.
For now.
They can do whatever they want.
So they could do whatever they want. So do you think Denis Villeneuve is behind the scenes still trying to work that? Or do you think it's like, hey, man, sorry, it's definitely going to HBO Max. Nothing we can do about it. We're premiering it at Venice, But I just wonder, do you think he's still pushing for it?
I would imagine by now he has, and he's apparently lost that battle. Like, I don't think this close to release. It's in October now. Like,
all right.
I don't think you're changing a machine. We can move on to, we have some trailers we got to talk about, but I do think for our longtime listeners and people who are going to stick around long term, this will be something that I think develops over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, in the sense that it's a major shift in the industry, and it's kind of mirroring early days in the industry, with sort of the Paramount Accords, which a brief explainer read up on this. It's a very complicated thing, but at one point in time, the studios did actually own the theaters, and they were distributing the films themselves, and they were making all the money, and there were this antitrust issues with the government. They came in and split them up. But now we're in this moment where the studios are the distributors, in the sense that they have control of all their own siloed platforms. They have their HBO Max, they have their Disney Plus, they have their Netflix. I think Netflix is definitely a part of that, even though they're not as much of a theatrical presence.
But there have been rumors that they were going to start like a Netflix
and I think
chain,
that
right?
I think that this will be an interesting thing to see where it goes, in the sense that if they just want to control the distribution of it and put it all on their platforms, I think we put ourselves back in that sort of antitrust issue, where then we have this entire industry, the theatrical industry, that if they don't have an exclusive window, then they can't conduct business. They can't invest that kind of money if they go, you're going to have it, but so will we, or you're only going to have it for a week. It's going to be interesting to see how far the studios take it and how far the theaters can kind of push back.
2 quick questions. All right,
Also,
go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Let me make a point, right? I think that there's 3 filmmakers that have the ability to say, my film is only going to theaters and it's not going to streaming.
Spielberg,
and I think that they would be Spielberg, Tarantino, and Nolan.
Okay.
Those are the three that I would single out. But however, let me bring out one other thing. Someone else who does have the power to say that would be Feige. And Feige either lost the battle or chose not to fight it. Like there has to be an upside for these movies being on streaming platforms. And it could be anything as much as like, we're talking about money, and it's usually money. But it could also just be customer satisfaction. They might be polling their subscribers and saying, do you like having this ability? Yeah. And if enough people are telling them that, yes, we do like having that option. If Warner Brothers is polling their HBO Max subscribers and those people are telling them, yeah, I'm going to continue my service because I enjoy having these first run movies available today and I'm not as concerned about getting out to the theater, then they're going to turn around to Denis, as much as we love Denis, but Denis does not have the ability to do that. James Gunn doesn't have the ability to do that. Warner Brothers is going to say to them, I don't care. Your movie's going to be on HBO Max. Yeah. And I don't think they have the pull that, the way that Nolan did with Tenet to say, no, I'm holding it in for theaters as long as I can. I think that's just the reality of it.
So let's say Tenet was coming out in October. What do you think would happen?
Nolan would protest.
Okay, but he protests. What does that do?
I think they would just delay it because I think that's a really bad precedent to set. To say, okay, for you, we'll bend the rules, but for Lana Wachowski and Denis, like we're not going. Keep in mind, like they've got Matrix 4 coming out in December, which is another massive movie that in theory like should just be in theaters.
So is West Side Story going to Disney Plus?
Probably not,
because it's Spielberg.
But Disney didn't make a blanket statement that all of them are going to Disney Plus.
Sean,
they've been picking and choosing.
To your point about Feige, that announcement about Black Widow, how many months ago was that now? Time is irrelevant these days. That's at least 3 months ago.
That it was going to be Disney Plus at the same time?
Wasn't that
was more recent.
No. Recent too.
That was more recent.
Was it more recent? Okay.
They didn't clarify.
Because I feel like only in the past few weeks, has the theatrical sort of business felt stable, in a sense. Is that?
I want to say even when at the investors call that you were talking about, that Marvel said our movies are going to be in theaters. Like they were really pushing we're going to help theaters open back up. So I was pretty surprised Black Widow was there.
I don't think that we can, in the same way that HBO said we're going to do the whole year, I don't think we can look at Feige's decision or lost battle of Black Widow hitting streaming as sort of an outlook of what's to come. I think you're making a good point that if it works for the customers, then the customer is always right, kind of thing. That's their business is their business. But I don't necessarily know that means that Marvel's interested in not being theatrical, because they are the theatrical business in the sense of they're the biggest winners.
For sure. Let me point at another person who theoretically would have enough power, I would think, would be The Rock. Like if The Rock stood up to Disney and said, Jungle Cruise is only going to theaters, does he have the power to do that?
I really don't think he has the power. I mean, he might be the biggest movie star on the planet. I also don't think he would even. I don't even think he would fight that battle, because I think The Rock is so in tune with customers, like you just brought up, that he's like he when he made that Red Notice film, which I think is the most expensive Netflix movie ever made. Like he even put in his caption that this is the first streaming film I've ever done. I'm like super proud of this. Netflix gave us all this money essentially to do this. And I don't think The Rock would even make that battle. I think he's so customer service based that he probably appreciates the fact that people can watch Jungle Cruise. And also Jungle Cruise is an interesting one because I think it being on Disney Plus is actually going to help that movie. Because I don't think Jungle Cruise would have had a massive, massive opening anyways. I think that Jungle Cruise is a movie that will benefit from that. My other question is this. You're HBO Max. You're seeing how much money Disney Plus is making off of these films. So $60 million theoretically in the first weekend for Black Widow. Do you start a premium service for like films like Suicide Squad and Dune and Matrix? Because you know for a fact that people would pay it. So if you're HBO Max, do you incorporate a Premier Access element to your service?
Jakey, what do you think?
It's not a bad idea, because clearly with Black Widow, they saw that people are willing to pay it, and at the end of the day, you don't want to turn down money. And every time, they mentioned, that usually when a film does well at the box office, it correlates with a lot of people watching it on HBO Max. And so at the end of the day, no company, no matter what business it is, wants to walk away from free money. And so, whether it's, what would it, cost them to put, a little extra price tag on
They
there.
could charge $30 for
it's
Matrix 4, and they probably would make money on that, or $30 for Dune, or Suicide Squad. If that was like a $20 premiere access, they could make so much money off of that. And again, I'm against day and date, and I want the theatrical exclusive. I'm just talking about it from a business perspective now. This is pure business, and I'm just wondering why they haven't implemented that yet, especially after what happened with Black Widow.
Well, because they made the year-long commitment. It all comes back to that. They've committed to this year being a certain business plan, and they reserve the right to either go full theatrical or to do just that and do a premiere access. They could do whatever they want January 1st.
And I would be mad at them if they implemented that change, only because, you should have done from the beginning. And you screwed yourself a little bit by laying out this platform.
Can't they just make that? Can't they just change it? I mean, do they?
But they're going to think of the headlines you're going to get. You're not going to get good
could.
headlines from that. You're only going to get bad headlines from HBO Max. Now costs extra every time you want to watch something on it.
But also, keep in mind, aside from In the Heights, every Warner Brothers movie has done very well this year.
Yeah.
All of them have been, for the most part, to different degrees, success stories when it comes to day and dates. You look at, Godzilla vs. Kong and Mortal Kombat and Space Jam and The Little Things, depending on what Suicide's, In the Heights is the only one that came out and made people go, well, it's because they put it on HBO Max. That's why it didn't do well, which they then came out and said, no, not that many people watch it on HBO Max. So for the most part, this grand experiment seems to be paying off.
Then why is No Sudden Move only HBO Max and not theaters?
I don't think it was ever intended to go
why?
to theaters.
Why?
HBO makes films. There's HBO films.
No Sudden Move is a WB film.
Yeah,
right?
but now they're HBO Max. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't know necessarily. I think if I were to crystal ball what Warner Brothers and HBO Max are going to do, I think that this year was a loss leader, so to speak. Let's say they're leaving money on the table for the rest of the year theatrically, to bolster HBO Max as a brand, to bolster subscriptions, to get people in the door. And I think that moving forward, they can sustain their subscribers with the next Game of Thrones that HBO has. You can be HBO Max and have people's money by putting Game of Thrones as a whatever, enter the must-see TV that HBO always has. And then their theatrical business can be their theatrical business, and they can say also, our movies are going to be here when they're eventually at home. I don't think they need to sort of cut themselves off and sort of cannibalize that long term. I think this was more they're new, it's a crowded space, and they made a big splash, and now we're still talking about that big splash. So I think that's all the play was. I think it's going to go back to theatrical. It'll come out later on HBO Max, but their TV business, they have HBO. It can sustain itself, I think.
Gabe, where can I see Venom Let There Be Carnage?
Sony. So that's going to be
Netflix, right? They have a deal with Netflix?
Right.
Just give it a couple of weeks. It'll be in the clearance.
Well, is that
let's move on.
Is that 100% true that in terms of, so that's right, because Sony, so they still go theatrical, exclusive.
Sony doesn't have they don't do that, yeah. Tarantino mentioned that.
But they're not day and date, though. They're not day and date Netflix. They're it's exclusivity and then...
They just license to Netflix, exclusive.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
By the way,
in a while,
the HBO Max platform I really like, and I'm more.
Oh, I love HBO Max. I watch it more so than Netflix.
And Lord just got Peacock. That's a phenomenal platform as well. These platforms are the only one that needs an update. I would argue is Amazon. Their platform is terrible.
Oh my god!
It's
they're and this is inside baseball, but their screener system for us to be able to watch stuff in advance.
You can send a man to space, Amazon, but you can't get my damn TV to work right.
I know the Amazon platform is so archaic. It's so
put your back
old
into
school.
it.
HBO Max is
they have a good catalog though. Prime's got they've got really good prestigious catalog.
But I don't like searching their catalog.
Just can't find anything.
I can't find anything on their platform.
Can't find it. Yeah. All right, let's get on to new Ridley Scott. New Ridley Scott has a movie coming out that I will eventually watch on Sci-Fi called The Last Duel. Oh, it's a book?
Yeah.
Sci-Fi.
I thought that this looked really exciting. I think the cast looks fantastic. I love the fact that they're burying Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in makeup that makes them unrecognizable. I think Adam Driver looks like he's about to chew scenery. I like Jodie Comer. All of this looks fantastic. You guys were a little lukewarm on it. Jakey, why were you lukewarm on this trailer?
I think the movie is going to be fantastic. I just didn't think it was the best trailer in the world, but I mean, I loved the look of it. I love sort of, the casting seems great. The story is unbelievable. It's this insane true story. And Ridley Scott, it's still a freaking master, and particularly with those kind of
81.
it's ridiculous.
83.
It's ridiculous, like that he made that, and so I think it's going to be great. It's one of my most anticipated of the year. I just didn't think that trailer was reflective of how good the movie's going to be. I have a feeling that the movie is going to be infinitely better than that trailer.
It gave me Gladiator vibes for sure in terms of like scope and scale, which is not a bad thing. That's why I made the Sci-Fi joke to Sean. I was like, you're going to watch this on Sci-Fi because he watches Gladiator on Sci-Fi. I don't know why we keep calling it Sci-Fi.
The only way to watch Gladiator.
My only problem with that trailer was the editing. I thought it was distracting. I wanted to see the visuals, and they kept doing this weird thing with and I get why they were doing it, but like the screen would be black and then part of the image would reveal itself in like a downward.
Those windows.
Yeah, and I've seen that before in trailers, and I've seen it before in movies and shows. I just think the movie looks so visually stunning that it took away from the experience. It actually made me think I was watching a trailer versus
I bet that works a lot better on a giant theater screen than your phone.
Would agree with you 100%.
Because those little windows are so small. I bet on a big theater you can see enough of the color palette, and I bet it's striking enough.
Question for you guys.
So that's coming in October. One thing I just want to point out is that, not to unearth this conversation again, but I did pay very close attention to the fact that at the end of that it said only in theaters, and I think that this is becoming
the new thing.
The line in the sand. Yeah, they're drawing a line in the sand. So when you saw it on Dune, you immediately took a picture of it and showed it to us, and you were like, look, HBO Max, they're saying it. And then instead, Fox Disney, turns around and says, no, you're coming to see Ridley.
Do you think Ridley is one of the guys that could put his foot in the sand?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Sir Ridley, how could you not?
I think Sir Ridley Scott has that pull. And it's so interesting because...
Well, and you have Ben Affleck, and you have Matt Damon.
Right.
Who could definitely... I don't know if they're producing this at all. I could definitely see Matt Damon.
Is this the first screenplay they've written together since Good Will Hunting? Well, they co-wrote with. There's three writers. Nicole, I don't want to botch her name. Nicole Holofcener.
Okay.
I know the name. I just don't know how to pronounce her last name. But Matt Damon and Affleck wrote it with Nicole. I was trying to figure out, is this the first time they've written a screenplay together since Good Will Hunting? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Did you talk to him about it yesterday?
I didn't bring it up.
Well, except Hunting Season. Yeah. I think they wrote Hunting Season.
Hunting Season is the movie that needs to be made, and that needs to go right to theaters.
Jesus, Ben, I'm busy.
Gus Van Sant.
Oh, we didn't even mention Clerks 3. What do you think about Clerks 3?
Dude, the Clerks 3 news made me so happy because, and for people who aren't aware of the news, Lionsgate is going to globally release this film. Kevin Smith, having a massive studio behind him like Lionsgate, it's such a big deal because Reboot was made on a smaller scale, smaller studio. It didn't get the run or the theatrical run that you would hope for. With Clerks 2 is still one of my favorite movies ever. It's the only movie I've ever cried in from Kevin Smith's, but prior up to that point in his career, I cried in the Randall prison sequence when he's talking to Dante, and it just, that movie meant so much to me to see in a theater. So for Clerks 3 to have a global massive studio behind it just gives me confidence that, one, the script's got to be great. There's no way it's not great. Two, I really think they're going to give this movie the promotion it deserves. Like it made me so happy for Kevin
because he's been road showing it for a while,
grassroots,
little by little, going
and those do really well. I mean, like, obviously he makes a lot of money touring his films around because and one of the things I always appreciated that he says this in interviews, and he said this before, if you think about it, when you go to a roadshow experience with Kevin Smith, it's like almost like a religious experience, as he'll put it, because everyone in that theater is a fan. Like, if you go to a movie theater and watch a film, you never know who you're sitting with. It might not be a big of as a Kevin Smith fan as you are, and the experience is still cool. But when you're in a room with all Kevin Smith fans watching his film, I'm hoping he still road shows Clerks 3. Maybe after the release, post-release, he goes out and does a Q&A tour with Jay and Randall.
The thing about it, though, is that Reboot was such a run through his career and an homage to everything he'd accomplished that I don't know. Hopefully, in a way, I hope Clerks 3 is more laser focused just on the story independently, the story in and of itself. Because Reboot was, which I thought was fantastic, a really great sort of run through all of the references from all the different films.
Yeah,
of
I
his
remember
career,
Affleck was in Clerks 2, and now that him and Affleck are working together again, I'm hoping Affleck shows back up. I still wonder, because Clerks 2 still has one of the best dialogues he's ever written, which was the Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars sequence with Randall. when he's talking about he explains Lord of the Rings in like 2 minutes. It's like Sean's heaven.
But he also has an entire donkey sex scene.
It's funny
too,
you bring that up
is...
because the moment in that movie that makes me cry is directly after that scene. And I always found that fascinating. It shows how brilliant of a writer is because he has that donkey scene, which is so disturbing and so crazy. And then you get to a prison scene with two best friends talking about their friendship and you're crying. And like, I don't know many filmmakers who can pull off a donkey show like they do in Clerks 2 and then genuinely bring you back to an emotional core like he does because he's such a good writer and he's such a good storyteller. So I'm all in on Clerks 3.
You're going to get invited to his house.
No, this is just, he's not listening to this. Yeah, you act like he's listening to me right now.
One franchise that I have not been, you guys probably are more into it than I am. I never really watched Jackass
all
franchise. I mean, I've watched it here and there. I absolutely know what it is. I've seen multiple episodes of it. I think I saw the first two.
You didn't see 3D?
Movies. I didn't see the 3D.
3D was amazing.
No, I didn't see the 3D one.
That might be top 10 experience, like 3D. Top 10 hardest I've laughed in a theater ever in my life.
That was probably one of the best 3D movies ever, too.
Heaving, like out of breath, like leaning over in a theater. How hard
Jake,
I
is
laughed.
Jackass 3? What's the one? My favorite bit they ever did is when they go to they go to a. This is obviously this is a Kevin scene. Of course, I'm bringing this up. They go to like a store that sells toilets and and home goods, and the guy literally goes number 2 in one of the display toilets, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, what a brilliant bit.
I feel like I've seen that scene.
That might have been 2.
So I don't know.
It
which
might have been
one
2. No pun intended. It might have been number 2.
Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. So Jackass Forever is coming out. The new trailer dropped. I didn't even get a chance to take a look at it. I should probably put it on.
It's awesome.
I enjoyed Action Park when Johnny Knoxville did that Action Park movie recently, and the credits that go over it. Okay, so you're both all in on this. It's being sold as the last one because essentially
the posters made me laugh. Like there are 2 posters, and one of them is Knoxville being shot out of a cannon. But like the way he's posed, he's like like he's got like these angel wings on. His like arms are slung back, and then the tagline is like "Some people never learn." And then there's another poster that is a fairly large man, shall we call him, maybe even an obese man who is wearing very little clothes with like a little winged thing strapped around him, and he's like running off a ramp, and like they caught the moment clearly right before he's about to tumble down a mountain.
It took me a couple of minutes to realize the hook of that poster. Did you not see it?
No, I guess not.
There's a whole field of cactus.
Oh no!
Is the guy you're referring to? Is it Preston? Isn't he one of the main Jackass guys? Is he the guy in the poster?
I'm not sure. I do know there are quite a few new people in this one, which people kind of feel mixed about. But Kevin, did you do the junket for 3?
I didn't do the junket for 3, but I was so obsessed with the franchise and the show on MTV that I went and saw. I'll never forget. I went and saw Steve-O live. This is back when Ryan Dunn was alive, so Ryan Dunn passed away years ago. He was a very big part of the Jackass films. But I was so obsessed with it that I wanted to see Steve-O do this stuff in person. He did a show across the country and stopped at like little venues. Dude ate a light bulb on stage.
Oh my God.
I could not believe what was going on. I mean, anytime you watch these Jackass movies and you think it's just a movie, it's not. Like, this stuff is like genuinely, the part in the trailer that makes me die laughing, Jake, I don't know if it made you laugh. They show this like shot and you don't realize it's a poster, and this guy drives right into it.
Yeah.
And it's just so well done.
Basically it was like real life Wile E. Coyote.
Jake, you were gonna mention the junket real fast. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, it was just I mean, like sitting across from those guys, and they're exactly who you would think they would be. It was a really great junket.
Well, that'll be coming out sooner or later. We're gonna find out who the director of that is and get them on. That seems like a natural.
Is it Jeff again?
Would love to talk
Tremaine,
to them.
Jeff Tremaine did
Oh, is it really?
And Spike Jonze does a lot of stuff with him as well, doesn't he?
Dude, Spike's in the series, and also like I think he's played his character gets an old makeup at one point in some of the older Jackass films.
Yeah.
Like Spike Jonze is like a major part of those films. Yeah.
Before we move on quickly, I'm going to point out the fact that Johnny Knoxville once was so massive that he got cast in a Dukes of Hazzard reboot as one of the Dukes.
Yeah.
Those Dukes brothers are at it
That
again.
was Sean William Scott as well. wasn't it?
It was Sean
just
William
talking about
Scott,
Sean
and then
William
Jessica Simpson played Daisy
Sean
Duke,
William
so,
Scott is
all right,
underrated, by the way. Can we just say he's underrated?
he was also in Cop Out, though.
But he's great in American Pie, and he was great in The Rundown. That dude's funny.
All right.
I love Sean William Scott.
This week in movies.
Affleck was the bomb in Phantom.
He was.
This week in movies is going to start with something that's not a movie. It's Ted Lasso Season 2, which is having its premiere on Apple TV. Jake went ahead and ruined it for himself by watching 8 episodes of the show.
8 of 10.
And now has to wait till September.
I don't know. This is such a like an inside baseball complaint, but they gave us the first 8 of 10, I'm assuming. Now the problem is they're only doing 1 per week. So if Apple doesn't give us the last 2 on the screener app, I basically have to wait until mid-September until I get to finish.
Jake, you know what this
Lasso.
is right here? You know what this is, Jake? What is this right here?
This is the
The world's tiniest violin playing. Sorry, I had to do a Reservoir Dogs reference.
Well, I very much enjoyed this season so far. I'm really loving it. Really, the comparison to be made is if you guys watch The Office, you know, the first season of The Office was kind of an introduction, like, hey, here's the world in which we exist. Here's who like the main characters are that you need to know. And then season 2 of The Office really was branching out in terms of the world, and then also like who are these background characters who were kind of floating around a little bit. And that's very much what Ted Lasso does as well. Like, yes, Ted and all the main characters you love from season 1 all very much get their chance to shine, but now a lot of the secondary characters you realize are just as interesting, if not more so. And what I love about the show is it's very much still a balance of, yes, sweetness and comedy, but like the first season did, it also does get very heavy at times. And I think it's those heavy moments that balance out the sweetness and the kindness, and both make the other better. You know, like the kindness makes the heavy moments heavier, and the heavy moments make the kindness kinder. Yeah. And that's really, really what I love about it. What about you guys?
I actually am waiting to watch more episodes because I want to do it week to week because like I love.
Well, fine, aren't you great?
Well, no, I just mean it like I get to a point I'm almost done with season 3, by the way.
Yeah, you are.
So good. But I am going to interject one little, I don't know if that's the right word, interject, but I'm going to say one thing because we're talking about season 2 of Ted Lasso, and we never mentioned this in the show. If anybody out there listening to us has not watched Dave, it's a show on FXX and Hulu. That's also in season 2, and it's a week to week. It's my favorite show on TV right now for the exact same reasons why I love Ted Lasso. It captures real life. It's funny, it's heartbreaking, it deals with actual serious issues. If you haven't seen, here's the best way I'll describe the show for people who haven't heard of it or seen it. It's based on a rapper named Lil Dicky and Dave Bird. It's Curb Your Enthusiasm with rap, or Seinfeld with rap, hip hop.
That's cool. That's a good. And
pitch. If you don't like hip, the same reason why Ted Lasso works. I'm not a soccer fan. You know, I like soccer, but when Ted Lasso first came out, I'm like, do I want to watch a show about soccer? It's not about soccer. It's about the characters, right? And I would argue that if you're not a hip hop fan, that Dave delivers the exact same goods as Ted Lasso on a much more R-rated level. But Ted Lasso season 1, if you haven't seen it, definitely check that one out. And obviously you can watch Dave on Hulu. Just wanted to mention that. So.
Mark Wahlberg has a movie coming in limited release. I'm under the impression called Joe
Select
Bell.
theaters, yeah.
And been hearing a lot about it, but I know absolutely nothing about it, Kevin. So tell me why it's worth it or not.
Jake and I both did the junket for this, and Jake finished the film, so I'll let him do the review aspect of it. But in terms of the film itself, from what I had seen from it, there's an anti-bullying aspect to it, which is very, very important. The plot basically deals with Joe Bell. It's based on a true story. His son commits suicide after being bullied for being gay in high school. And so he decided to go on a walk across the country, essentially campaigning against bullying and talking out about it. And it's really about a father's acceptance and awakening about paying attention to his child, and kind of like going back and understanding maybe what he did wrong or what he didn't listen to, or not, giving his son a better understanding. Because I think the line in the movie they use is understanding starts at home. And there's a lot in this film that is, from what I've seen, is just, it's heartbreaking. As somebody, I was bullied in school. I think a lot of people were bullied in school, so it's not really like everyone. I think people have been through it. But the film really touches on that concept of the home life and kind of what happens at home. And one of the things that I always experienced in terms of bullying that I've learned later on in life is, what about the home life of the bullies? Because then there's another interesting aspect there as to kind of like what's going on in their homes. And I'm not, there's no defending bullies and what they do, but it is an interesting thing that everything kind of starts at home, on both sides of the coin. So I think, obviously Jake will tell you Wahlberg's performance is unbelievable. It's a very good performance. It's tough because he's so famous, and sometimes it's hard to look past, oh, that's Mark Wahlberg. But he really went there for this one.
He does not hide in a role. He rarely
this
hides.
This one, he hides in it. And I know Stillwater's coming out next week. Speaking about somebody on a similar level as Wahlberg would be Damon. And I watched Stillwater. I didn't see Damon on screen. I saw Bill Baker, the character he played. And here I felt the same way. Joe Bell, he's Joe Bell. I mean, it's, you take a couple minutes, you realize you're watching Wahlberg, then you immerse yourself in the story. But Jake finished it, so I'll let Jake give a review on it. But
terrible title for a movie.
It's a weird title because no one knows who Joe Bell is. Yeah. Right.
No idea.
Yeah. In fact, whenever I needed to find emails that had junket information in it, I always I would have to type in Mark Wahlberg because I couldn't remember what the title of the movie was, and I was like, wait, what is that? What is that junket I'm doing on Friday? Yeah, you're right. It's not a great title, but it is, I thought, a really, really, really strong movie. There was I watched it without having seen the trailer. And there is something that is ruined in the trailer that I was kind of glad that I didn't know going in. Is it worth talking about?
Don't say it.
Don't say it.
It's a plot device that is used in the film in a really interesting way. But if you watch the trailer, you're clearly like, oh, okay, they're doing that. I didn't know that they were doing that, and so when the reveal comes when it comes, and it's not like a twist ending or anything, it's just, oh, by the way, here's this. It was really, it took me for a loop. But I thought Wahlberg's performance was really incredible.
Very good.
All the Connie Nielsen for Friday Night Lights is fantastic. The young actor Reed Miller, I think, is one of those one to watch young guys. I think he's going to do some great stuff. The ending was, without getting a little bit of a whiplash. It kind of felt like the movie had a really nice click to it, and it was moving and then really quick they squeezed in what probably should have been 10 minutes worth of movie in the last 90 seconds, to the point where I was wait, I'm sorry, wait, what happened? And then it ends and then title card into movie, and I'm like, wait, how did that happen? You could this movie's already. It's only 90 minutes. You couldn't have given me another, it's one of the few movies lately where I thought to myself, that could have been 10 minutes longer. Right. You could have given me an extra 10 minutes. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I very much think it's absolutely one of Wahlberg's best performances.
Yeah, and I want to clarify one thing, and I said this a few times in the show over the course of us doing the show. I want to clarify this for my own purposes. But when I say I haven't finished a film, Jake and I and Sean, we're doing so many junkets that sometimes I'll get a screener the night before an interview, and I'll only have the morning of to watch it in between my TV segments before I drive home to do the interview at 1:30 in the afternoon. So it's not that I don't want to finish these films. It's just that sometimes I just don't have the time to, and I go back and revisit them, obviously.
Yeah, but you will not go on the air
review it.
And I remember what was it Toronto one time that we missed because the shuttle got us there late, right, and we missed the first 10 minutes of a movie, and you made a point, even though we saw
90% of it,
110 minutes. You didn't. You made a point of saying, I'm not going to review this unless I can go back and watch it from the beginning all the way through. So I
To that end, I miss having to go to theaters. I like going to the theater to commit to.
Right. Because
you commit to the time.
Wahlberg's film, obviously you guys know this, but Jake and I do a morning show, and I have a hit every hour, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And for that type of movie, in terms of the way it was sent to me, I'm watching 20 minutes at a time in chunks in between my segments while I'm producing and writing and editing my segments. So it's really, to Sean's point, when you put it in a theater, like Stillwater the other day, which I sat down, and I had to sit there for 2 hours and 20 minutes, no phone, nothing. It made me commit, which is another reason why the theatrical experience is important.
All right, so I think I'm the only one who saw Snake Eyes.
Wait, Sean, you were going to say I was undercutting something. What were you going to say?
I said you were cutting into my time to review Snake Eyes, for God's sakes. I want to get to the new G.I. Joe Origins. Come on, for God's sakes. I will say that this is, I got a phone call from my Paramount rep immediately as I was walking out of this movie, because I guess they wanted to kind of figure out what they had. And my genuine reaction to her was, well, that didn't suck, because I went into it assuming that it was going to be really bad. And it wasn't. They do a pretty good job of setting up who this character is going to be. You have to know going into it that it's a G.I. Joe film, obviously. But it's a good origin story for a character who, for the most part, doesn't speak and wears a mask the entire time and is a silent kind of ninja. They instead do a pretty good job of setting up a backstory for this character and setting up a rivalry with a character named Storm Shadow, and they do something fairly interesting in that for the bulk of the Snake Eyes movie, and this isn't necessarily a spoiler, he's kind of the villain. Like, he's kind of sided with the organization that is doing the wrong thing for the bulk of this film. And you kind of wait to see, like, oh, how are they going to rework this so that he's eventually with G.I. Joe? Are they even going to go down that route? So there's the rivalry between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and the two actors playing him, Henry Golding and, oh gosh, what's the other guy's name? His last name is Kijo. He plays Tommy in the movie. That stuff is really compelling. It's really, really interesting. Then about the hour mark, they start to roll in G.I. Joe people. Samara Weaving plays Scarlet. They have a character, the Baroness, who is one of the Cobra people, and the movie does not care about them at all. Like, when they come on screen, it's just really cheesy kind of, let's remind people that Cobra and G.I. Joe are part of this world. And you're like, all right, get back to the more interesting, compelling rivalry between these two characters. I ended up going 3 stars out of 5. Only go see it if you care about G.I. Joe at all, or if you think Henry Golding is fairly interesting. The director did the 2 Red movies, and the one thing he brings to the fight elements, the fight components, is that they do an amazing job with sound mixing and with the fighting, so you literally feel every punch and every kick that's being thrown. Like, it is physical and it's brutal, and Henry Golding commits fully to it. But I'll be really curious if they do a sequel to it, how they're going to commit to covering his face with the mask the entire time, because I just don't think he'll do that. He's a pretty charismatic actor, and I don't know. I'll see. I'll be curious to see if this warrants a franchise. I think it's gonna have a soft opening, and then.
Sean, did you hear about Henry Golding's favorite Nicolas Cage movie?
I know what it is.
It's Snake Eyes. Yes. That's it.
It's Snake Eyes.
now,
Brian De Palma.
What would have been the great punchline is, no, like, it's leaving Las Vegas.
Dude, the opening
I just really like
shot of De Palma's Snake Eyes. I think it's like
I like that movie.
Is it 20-minute wonder? Whatever. I don't remember how.
Is that the movie where, like, the dude gets killed at during a boxing match?
I believe it's so funny. I don't even really remember the film. I just remember the opening shot. That's all I remember is the. Yeah. I believe so.
I don't think it's that. I thought there was a hurricane coming.
No, I think it's a boxing match.
Here's the plot for Snake Eyes. A shady police detective finds himself in the middle of a murder conspiracy at an important boxing match in Atlantic City. And then the opening shot, I think, is the boxing match, I believe. I think it goes into the stadium, I believe. I have to go back and watch it. But that's De Palma.
Well, different Snake Eyes. It's a different Snake Eyes. All right, let's get to M. Night. M. Night Shyamalan has a new film out in theaters. We obviously spoke to him earlier in this episode. And it is called Old. Jakey, tell us what you thought about M. Night Shyamalan's latest film, Old, and how it plays in theaters.
Look, this is not a very sexy, like, review, but, like, I thought it was fine. Like, I thought it was, I feel like it was a really hefty 30 minutes too long. I thought there were a couple of moments that dragged. They could have been sped up. I actually felt like there were a couple of moments that were sped up that they could have drug out a little bit to, like, particularly when it comes to how a particular character is impregnated. that's a moment that I would have like, wait, explain to me how that happened again.
You needed that explained?
Well, it's kind of it would be how it happened.
The moment, like the circumstances under like.
I thought that was well done. Sorry, we're getting into a specific that we can't.
I liked sort of the concept behind it. I just would have liked a little bit more like, that happens too. In terms
we
of the
can't.
rules.
Well, maybe this is worth spoiling.
You know what I mean? Yeah, sorry.
To me, I will say this to you, and people at home can come back after they see it. To me, I felt that was a really nice way. A really creative way to cover that without making it too gross.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it was implied, enough was implied, enough happened. We saw enough and understood enough that it was like, okay, I don't have to think about this too much.
Yeah. It just felt like, and I follow him on Twitter, so I know he worked on this quite a bit, and he always talks about how many drafts he writes of his screenplays, but this kind of felt like the first draft, and it felt like it needed like another take, another polish, another cleanup. A lot of really interesting ideas, some really great performances. He does some really fascinating camera work. And then I also believe that like the twist, as it were, didn't need to be a twist. Could have been just a major plot point in the film.
Mm-hmm. You brought up at one point where you said like, had they introduced the explanation in the middle of the movie and then spent more time exploring it, I kind of would have liked that as well too, because so much of how I was feeling about this movie hinged on what the explanation was going to be. And I'm like, I said to Michelle multiple times, because there were times where she was like, I don't think this is working, and I was like, no, I know what you're saying, but I just want to see what the explanation is, because there is enough good things happening in it that I wasn't ready to dismiss it.
I was never bored.
I loved his camera work.
Yeah.
No, I was never bored. I loved his camera work. I thought it was some of the most aggressive and really stylish stuff that he's done, specifically just basing it on his previous works. I thought a lot of the performances were really great. I think Thomasin McKenzie is coming on as an amazing performer to watch. Like, she is just a powerhouse. But then I thought some of the performances were a little bit over the top, and some people looked like they maybe didn't fit in 100% without naming names. I kind of liked the body horror stuff when that finally kicked in. I thought that was gruesome, but in a way that it fits the story. And so
I won't say much, but what a cool way to use the concept of the film to create like a monster, like to create like it's very much that moment feels like a horror movie tropey kind of moment, and it's set up well with a throwaway line. And it's 100% like the movie's concept. That's really clever.
So I'm a little bit with Jake. Not that it felt like at one point Michelle said this, she was like, this feels like a student film, like a student filmmaker who was trying a lot of things, and some of them worked great. But some of them needed to be refined a little bit.
Don't you think it could have been like a really cool, like 60-minute short film,
100%.
Or like a 4-episode limited series?
See, I think what it explores is so interesting. I just wish we had more time with the exploration. That's what it comes down to, is like what it ends up saying and what it ends up doing. To me, was more fascinating than the lead up to it. I wish I could have spent another 45 minutes in the world after they reveal what's kind of going on. Like, to me, now knowing what's going on, I wish I could. There's so much to explore there, and that's what. Like, I wonder if he'll do like a split glass thing with this, where you can play around with, You
have to call it. You have to call the next movie older, right? Have to.
Older.
Has to be older. It's the only way to do it.
A couple of things I want to mention specifically. It's a solid film. I think it's a solid film, but it doesn't. It brings up questions that I think could have made the film better had they been touched on more. And I think performance-wise, is it Vicky Krieps or Cripes? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She's from Phantom Thread. She was Daniel Day-Lewis's love interest in the film, but she's also a phenomenal character in Phantom Thread. Outside of just being Daniel Day-Lewis's love interest, her character was so strong and awesome that I think that, she's an amazing actor, and there's no way M. Night didn't see her in Paul Thomas Anderson's film and think, I gotta have her in this. I mean, she's an incredible actor. She's great in the movie too. And Thomasin, I think, is the best performance in the movie, no question. Shout out to the camera work, as you guys mentioned, shot on 35mm film. I loved, and I said this in our TV interview, one of the things I found interesting about the film was it made you lean into the frame a lot, which creates an immersive experience, because as the characters are getting older, he shows you less and less of them in introductory shots. So like we know the character's gotten older, then we'll be behind their head and we don't know what they look like yet. And I found myself like leaning outside of the frame, like I want to see the rest of their head kind of thing. Yeah. And I think when a filmmaker can manipulate you like that, like Tarantino writes a great part of this in his new book about Roman Polanski and Rosemary's Baby, and a shot that was off center somehow, and it made the audience tilt their head away to look at the frame, even though in a weird way you're not gaining any more frame by looking at things like that, but you're so sucked into the world that you forget you're watching a movie and you think you're there. And I think M. Night did a really wonderful job of kind of making us feel that uncomfortableness. I would argue that he actually makes you feel the aging. Like you genuinely feel it in your bones as the characters are aging, because he does like this wicked stuff with the camera that makes you feel so disoriented that you almost start feeling what they may feel like in terms of the aging. So there's a lot in this film that I think is great, and I think it's definitely worth a watch. There are problems, of course, and they didn't explore things that I wish they explored more, but I do think it's worth a watch. It's a solid effort in his filmography. Is it Sixth Sense? Is it Unbreakable? Is it Village level? For me, no. But it's definitely on a level where I think that people should definitely give it a chance.
I got to break in and let you guys know that we have some breaking news. Warner Brothers was casting their Batgirl movie, and they just tapped Leslie Grace, who plays Nina in The Heights, to be the new Batgirl. So, huge promotion for her, staying in the Warner Brothers family, and is now going to play a superhero.
Beautiful.
So, good for her. Yeah, it's a really great get. Let's get to our blend game, our weekly blend game, where we are getting away from directors and actors and going after a moment or a scene. I love the moment. This one in particular, yeah, they're fun. They shake things up a little bit, and we're going after food scenes that we love. And so, Jakey, start us off. What is your favorite hashtag food scene blend?
I also think I know Kevin, so I want to predict Kevin's before.
I think I know Kevin's also. Yes.
I am going with one I think is probably a fairly popular one, but it's one of my all-time favorites. It's the prison scene from Goodfellas. And when they're, because it's also just the kind of the dichotomy of this, what could be in any other context a moment from like the most classy Italian restaurant you've ever been to, like the perfect thin slicing of the garlic. You have Beyond the Sea playing in the background, and you have these guys that genuinely like it's almost like the scene is so well shot. It's almost like you could smell the food. Like every time I watch that movie, I feel like I can smell like the Italian food that's, because what Italian food smells like. And so it triggers that in you. That's how powerful it is. But you take that moment, this moment of like this incredibly like classy, upscale cooking experience, and then you place it in prison. Like the fact that these guys, like they all got banged and they're all like in the can. And it's just like, yeah, this is our prison experience, and just the way Scorsese shoots it and uses the music, and kind of just the way he like presents both like the class of how they like it's an art form for them. This the cooking of the Italian food, but within the frame of of prison. It's like having hanging a Van Gogh in a Walmart frame. It's just this really really incredible moment in the way it's acted, and the way it's shot, and the way it's edited together. And it's my all-time favorite.
Kind of love that you're doing a Sopranos rewatch.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. It's so good.
I'm doing it as well, and you're ahead of me now.
Okay.
I think I started it earlier. I'm episode 5 of season 1.
Okay, so I'm on 3 of season 2.
Is it on HBO Max?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
It is on HBO Max.
And the reason I'm doing it is because at your suggestion, Sean, we were talking about Many Saints of Newark, and I watched The Sopranos live. My parents let me like start it when it came out, which means I was like 11 so I don't it's almost, especially the earlier seasons, like I remember a lot of like what happens to everyone, but all the early stuff I don't really, a lot of the stuff with Uncle Junior and his mother and all that sort of stuff I don't really remember.
His mother is the greatest character.
She's what a so brilliant actress. Do you know is she still with us?
No, I don't think
she's
so.
What a brilliant actress she is. But yeah, if you, it's we'll talk about Many Saints of Newark later. But
the reason why I brought up Sopranos, I wasn't pulling it out of thin air. There's a lot of great food scenes in this.
Oh my god. Yes.
And Gandolfini, when he eats, it's such a performance.
Yeah.
Like it's
like an art form watching him eat. It is.
Yes,
it
really
By the way,
is.
Gandolfini is amazing in True Romance. It's a terrible character, a horrible human being, but a great performance.
He's amazing in generally everything. He's another one.
Did you ever meet him, Sean?
lost
I know we're
my-
off topic. Did you ever meet him?
No, I never got a chance to, unfortunately. All right, I'm going with. I thought someone else would pick this too. Maybe Kevin will. I'm going with Anton Ego eating the ratatouille in Ratatouille, because cooking
really good
for
one.
me is. Clearly, you can tell that food is a passion of mine.
What does that mean? Clearly, we can tell.
And I love cooking. I mean, I'm bigger than you two waifs, essentially. And so I love cooking, and cooking makes me feel very emotional. There's nothing more that I like than when someone enjoys something that I've cooked.
It's like Justin
when I
Timberlake
was
in
at
Pop
the
Star. Where
in-laws.
he puts his head out and he's like watching Andy Samberg try the food. And he's like, "Is it good?"
Dude, that is exactly what it is. Like, I was at my in-laws' house for vacation when I got to hang out with the McCarthys. And for whatever reason, my mother-in-law thinks that I'm the son-in-law who can grill. And I like grilling, but so she'll give me I took a picture of all the burgers and hot dogs I was making on the 4th of July. Later on in the week, they invited a lot of other people over, and my mother-in-law got filet mignon from Costco, and then they marinated it in something called Yoshida sauce, which is like a Japanese, it's a little bit like a soy sauce, but it's sweet also to it, but then it burns really quickly on the grill, and the steaks that she gets, the filet mignon she gets, are super thick. When you have an element that burns really quickly and you got to cook the steak all the way through, it's really hard. And it turned out great. I was so happy with the way that it turned out, and I was so guilty of fishing for compliments. Every time that we came back around, I was like, "How about those steaks? Right? They turned out pretty good." And they were like, "Oh my god, they turned out so." So I appreciate when you eat something and it brings you a great memory. And I thought Ratatouille, leading up to that point, was good. I thought it was good. I liked it. I thought it was a little goofy the way that he was manipulating the chef with his hair. And, just the idea of a rat who can cook. I was like, this isn't like vintage Pixar. But then that moment kicked, when the critic ate the ratatouille and he took him back to his childhood. That resonated with me and blew me away. And I still think it's such a heartwarming and just an amazingly emotional scene in that movie, and it reduces this character who's been a complete asshole for the entire time to somebody that everybody can relate to. And so
Is that Peter O'Toole, right?
Yes, Peter O'Toole. And again, perfect voice casting for it. And so
I've never seen
that.
Ratatouille.
I had another alternate, but I want to see what Kevin picks.
I've never seen. That's one of the only Pixar films I've ever seen, actually.
It's really
No
good.
really good.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
For some
give it a shot.
reason.
Well, I just ruined it for you.
No. Yeah, spoiler alert. No, but I genuinely, that's one of the only ones I missed. But no, I want to hear your other one real fast, and then I'll give you mine.
Well, I was going to pick the blueberry pie eating scene in Stand By Me.
Oh.
Because I think Gordy is such a brilliant storyteller, and I love that it's a kid at that stage who entertains his friends around a campfire by telling a story. And he's such a surrogate for Stephen King at that point. But I just think I love people who can tell a really good story. And that's I remember watching that as a kid and being horrified that could even be in a movie. Because you remember when Lardass finally turns and barfs all over everybody. And now you watch it and it's so over the top grotesque that it's funny. But at the time I was like, how is this? How are they allowing this to be in a movie? It was this giant guy vomiting on everybody.
Because I mean, you love it. I love the idea of that. That's how kids, you remember childhood memories differently than they probably really happen. And there's a good chance that that's not how it happened. But that's his childhood memory of that moment. He probably, to him it was, in the same way when you go back to the house you grew up in, you think this seemed bigger whenever I was a kid. Moments have that ability too. Moments seem bigger and more extreme. That's why I love the extremity of that barfing moment.
Jake, guess Kevin's.
I think it's the cheeseburger and the $5 milkshake from Pulp Fiction.
I mean, that's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
100% accurate.
Oh wait, Kevin, tell the story. Tell the story.
About Tarantino.
You got your question answered.
So my
after the show.
That is my pick. My honorable mention was going to be the s'mores scene from Sandlot, which is just iconic. And speaking of barfing, when they put the chew in their mouth in that movie and they're all barf on the circular ride, that's a pretty, and it just splatters on the ground. So So, all right. So I'll tell why, and then I'll tell the story. So Pulp Fiction, to this day, I've never seen a hamburger look so appetizing than I did in Pulp Fiction. And I don't know what it is about the way it's framed, but the way that shot looks. So basically I think everybody who's listening to the show has seen the movie, but
It's
If you haven't, you should stop this and go watch Pulp Fiction.
But Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta get to Brett's apartment, and Brett's the person they're there to kill, which, by the way, for many years, I thought his name was Brad because of the way
Brad, the big brains on
but
Brad.
It's Brett.
Yeah.
It sounds like Jackson saying Brad. And so he asks Brett what he's eating, and they're about to kill this guy, but he's like, they're just having a conversation, and then there's a whole Bible verse, and then they blow him away. But there's this burger that's sitting on Brett's plate or in the burger wrapping, and it just looks so appetizing. He asks the guy if he could try it, and it's just like this beautiful shot of like a singular burger, and he picks it up, and the way he bites into it, there's something about that I've always wanted to know what that tasted like. I mean, that must have been, I just wonder to this day, because the guy, Sam Jackson, bites into the burger, and I always imagine what that burger would taste like, kind of like Good Burger.
Tasty. I believe he described it as tasty.
Right. But I remember in Good Burger, I felt the same way, like with the way they frame those burgers. But the way Tarantino...
We talk all the time of like when you see a fast food commercial and they show you like the Big Mac.
Yeah.
And you're like, it
never looks like that
when you get any kind
And I don't even
burger.
know what it is about the way the burger looked. It's probably more of the way Tarantino shot it and lit it, because it just looked so appetizing.
Yeah.
So
well, because like you can see like the glistening of the cheese on the burger.
it's perfect. Even the way.
So tell him the origin.
But
Tell
even
him
the way Sam
origin.
Jackson sips his Sprite. It's got it tastes like it must have been the best Sprite of all time. Just the way his face as he goes and he finishes the Sprite. So Tarantino, after the event, we were done with the event at the New Beverly when we did the 2-hour conversation with him on stage, which I can't believe that's even a real thing that happened, but it did. After the event was over, he was signing books. I said, hey, I'd love to ask you this. I never asked you this before. I hadn't have time to ask it in the Q&A. But where'd you get that burger from that was in Pulp Fiction? And he's like, oh, and guys, clarify me if I'm wrong. He said, I had a chef on set who put that burger together, and he went on to clarify that every single food scene in my movies should make you want to eat it. So if you're watching Bastards and there's that cream scene with the dessert that he's having with Christoph Waltz, I want you to want to eat that. I want you to want to eat the Durwood Curry burger that Uma Thurman orders at Jack Rabbit Slim's in Pulp Fiction. So... Speaking of that,
the Big Kahuna burgers in From Dusk Till Dawn look kind of gross.
Yeah,
but that's Rodriguez. I guess Rodriguez shot it because just remember like shits fall and when he like takes Tarantino's hand and he like shoves the burger in his like it's gross.
But Rodriguez was also that was a nasty hotel room. I mean Brett's apartment wasn't that nice either. But I mean,
dude, one of the best questions you've asked in Real Blend history though was Joey Pants and the steak from the Matrix.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, that's a great answer. That would be a great answer too.
I forgot about the steak. He gave a great answer. He was like, everybody came to set that day and watched me eat the steak. It was cool. I think they were in some kind of high rise in Australia or something. Yeah,
they were. Yes.
But just
he's good. Sopranos.
He is amazing. Bouncing off of the Pulp Fiction thing real fast, and then when you enter Jack Rabbit Slim's, and Uma orders the $5 shake. Now, what's interesting about that scene is I don't know that the shake necessarily looked any more appetizing than a shake I've ever seen before, but the context of the scene and how it's set up and the way Travolta drinks it and the way he reacts to it, he's like, that's a pretty damn good milkshake. The way he says the line, he can't even get the words out because it's so good. You know that shake probably tastes like $1 million. But there's just something about it. So the burger in Pulp Fiction, while I don't think it's the greatest looking burger of all time, it's the way it's lit, it's the way it's designed, it's the context of the scene. And I've always wanted to taste that burger. I always wanted to know what that burger tasted like. And I guess we could ask Sam Jackson next time we talk to him what that burger tasted like. So
can I do a quick honorable mention before we move on? My honorable mention is the food fight scene from Hook.
Oh yeah.
And like because you get it's an empty table with all these like empty things, and Robin Williams doesn't know what the hell is going on, and then all of a sudden the moment where he believes and they just start taking the crap and just start chunking it. Oh, it's I love Hook. I love Hook. I will defend Hook. That is a hill I will die on.
I'm gonna ruin Sean's pick. I think Sean. I think one of the best ones that we were missing here is just Chef. Those sandwiches
Well, so
I mean, that whole movie, oh my God.
Paul Marsh and Carrie Case said literally the entire Chef movie.
Was it a Cuban sandwich?
Do not watch that movie hungry.
Cuban sandwich? Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, he also makes a grilled cheese for Scarlett Johansson's character, but they do make Cubanos actually, yes, in his food truck. So, so many people pointed out the chef grilled cheese scene. Michael says the rice noodles from a film called The Flavors of Youth. Roman King says mine has to be Dumb and Dumber, the laxative in the tea, which also works.
That shake did look good, by the way. I mean, it did.
Which he says. It also works for bathroom blend, right, Kevin McCarthy
yeah,
TV?
Of course it
does.
What was the name? What was the name of the laxative? It was like Blowout Central. Or I don't remember what it was called. It was something like really.
I don't remember.
Remember when we finally did bathroom blend? And Kevin, weren't you like so disappointed because none of us actually picked? Like actual. We just picked scenes that took place.
Forget what I picked.
You were like, oh, like this scene takes place in a bathroom, so I'm going to go with Mission Impossible, where Henry Cavill's fighting. That wasn't. It was completely against what bathroom blend was supposed to be.
We took it too literal.
To this day,
if you can green light shit blend, then we'll play that game.
You guys want to do shit blend?
Okay. If that's not real blend out of context, I don't know what it is. There's your quote for the week.
Green light shit.
Can we do it Harold and Kumar style and call it Battle Shits blend? Remember in Battle Shits they played?
Oh my God.
The two girls in the bathroom.
All right. Scott Frazier, coincidentally, said when Harold and Kumar finally get to White Castle,
so
which is another
weird
fantastic
dude,
scene.
when they eat those burgers.
Yes. And a lot of love from the hashtag Alita Army for the orange scene in Alita Battle Angel. So I also would have talked about the chocolate in Alita Battle Angel, since we did learn that Robert Rodriguez is a chocolatier. And he put it into his film. So thank you so much for all your participation this week. Food scene blend was a hit, and some really great examples, even from the ones that we didn't pick. So next week with Jungle Cruise on the horizon, we're going to be playing something that I'm very surprised we haven't played yet. Hashtag Dwayne Johnson blend. Yeah. So let us know your pick for your favorite movie by Dwayne using hashtag Dwayne Johnson blend. You can use that on social media or email us at realblend@cinemablend.com. Yes, Jake.
I don't know if you guys have already seen this. I just saw it was announced. Army of the Dead 2, Zack Snyder returning at Netflix.
No, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He also has that Army of Thieves.
Yeah, the prequel, but this is apparently a sequel. Army of the Dead 2.
No kidding. Good for him.
Hollywood Reporter.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he has found his new home.
Good for him. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, reviews for the show, which you can also send at realblend@cinemablend.com. This one comes from Jonathan Dowdell, and he says, "Good morning. I'll begin by saying that I had not listened to your podcast before yesterday, when I saw on a website, can't remember which one, mentioned that a podcast called Real Blend just released a live podcast with Quentin Tarantino."
Hey, we did that.
We did, yes, we did do that. When I went to look for it and saw it was titled as Volume 3, I knew I couldn't start there, so I downloaded the first two. I listened to all three back to back, yes, about 5 hours out of my day. They were absolutely fantastic. Thank you for such amazing episodes with my all-time favorite filmmaker, but to be completely honest, I think I enjoyed your pre- and post-interview excitement for what you had done more than the actual interview. I'd be the same way if I talked to Tarantino. Thanks again from a new listener.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I have to agree that the run-up and the post-game breakdown of all three of those episodes were pretty entertaining, especially the second one. The second one had a lot of options.
Yeah, Volume 2 was pretty insane. I love that they're volumed. And my favorite part about it is
that was a good call.
Yeah, what that guy said is so great. Like, if you see Volume 3, psychologically you're like, where are the other two? I mean, I'm so happy that people are doing that.
And unlike Kill Bill, they are three different podcasts.
Yeah, it's three separate.
I'm actually going to release a compendium edition. It's going to be all of them.
The whole bloody. All right, Gabe is going to release it like whenever we're done with Real Blend, 10,000 plus episodes. He's going to release them all into one long string and just call it the Whole Bloody Affair.
The Whole Blendy Affair.
Hubie.
I hate myself. That was so awful. All right, well, thank you very much for that review, and welcome as a new listener. We're glad to have you here. Our next premium episode is going to be a mailbag, but I'm also going to say that the previous premium episode for that new friend of the show that's listening was a breakdown of what happened for with Volume 3 with some really good stories. Again, you get access to the Real Blend Premium episodes at cinemablend.com/RealBlend Premium. So we hope you guys enjoyed M. Night this week. We have some really exciting guests on the horizon. Make sure you keep it here at Cinema Blend and Real Blend. Subscribe to the show. Follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach. And you can follow the show at Real Blend. And we'll be back next week. Till then, Hook!
Minority Report?
Why is it? I haven't seen
God.
Hook yet.
QB?
Still haven't seen
Dude,
Hook.
watch it. Watch
wait,
it.
you
It's
haven't seen Hook?
Genius. It's
Oh.
genius.
Never seen Hook before, no.
It's
It's not genius.
It is.
Hook is very good.